Hi students, welcome to SPSVERSITY. In the previous session we discussed about the body fluids, the blood, lymph and different types of circulatory system. Circulatory system in fishes, amphibians and mammals. Today we are going to discuss about human circulatory system. So the first part we are going to discuss is heart. So heart has 4 chambers, that is 2 atrium and 2 ventricles. Atrium and ventricles are separated by atrioventricular septum provided with an opening, that is atrioventricular opening, which are guarded by valves. That is, right atrium and right ventricle, they are guarded by tricuspid valve, and left atrium and left ventricle are guarded by mitral valve or bicuspid valve. The right ventricle opens into, that is, the right ventricle will opens into system aorta, and the left ventricle opens into pulmonary aorta. So in these both aorta, these are guarded by semilunar valves. So what is the function of these valves? So these valves will prevent backward flow of blood, that is, it allows unidirectional flow of blood, so that the blood will not come back. So once it is pumped, it is forwarded, it doesn't come back. So here you can see there are 4 chambers: right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. These are atrioventricular openings. So right atrium, right ventricle are provided by, that is, an valve, that is tricuspid valve. Left atrium, left ventricle are provided by, that is, mitral valve, or it is also called bicuspid valve. So it is also called bicuspid valve. So the valve which separates both ventricles, that is that is ventricular septum, interventricular septum. The right atrium receives blood from vena cava, that is superior vena cava, which collects blood from upper part, and inferior vena cava, which collects blood from lower part. So the right ventricle will open into pulmonary aorta, where blood will reach to, that is, the lungs. That is, through pulmonary arteries, the blood will reach to the lungs. From left ventricle, it goes to, that is, aorta, which is the biggest blood vessel through which the oxygenated blood is supplied to various body parts through this aorta. Through two different parts to this system, aorta will supply blood. So here you can see heart valves. This is tricuspid valve between the right atrium and right ventricle. This is mitral valve or bicuspid valve between left atrium and left ventricle. Pulmonary semilunar valve, that is, from right ventricle there is a vessel which conducts blood from right ventricle to the lungs, that is, they have pulmonary semilunar valves. And from left ventricle, the blood vessel which supplies blood to various body parts, that is aorta, which has aortic semilunar valves. So there are 4 valves seen here, one between right atrium and right ventricle, and another one between left atrium and left ventricle, and next another one in pulmonary aorta, that is pulmonary semilunar valve, another one in systemic aorta, that is aortic semilunar valve. So these valves will help the unidirectional flow of blood. As it shows unidirectional flow of blood, so that the blood is pumped properly. Okay. So here when you come to conducting system of heart, the entire heart is made up of cardiac muscles. So the entire heart is made up of cardiac muscles. So the wall of ventricles is much thicker than atrium. Okay. So in heart there is a nodal tissue in the upper corner of right atrium. So that is called sinoatrial node. That is SA node, which in short form it is called SC node, which is also called pacemaker. Another nodal tissue is present in the posterior to nearer to the interventricular septum, which is called AV node, that is atrioventricular node. So there are 2 nodal tissues, one that is in the right atrium, one in the upper right corner, one in the bottom nearer to interventricular septum. So one is called SA node, another one is called AV node, atrioventricular node. So here a bundle of nodal fibers, that is, which is called atrioventricular bundles, which continue through interventricular septum and divide into right and left atrioventricular bundles. So which is also called bundle of His. So this bundle of His will give rise to profuse branches to the wall of ventricles. These branches are called Purkinje fibers. Okay. These branches are called Purkinje fibers. From sinoatricular node, SCA node, which is also called pacemaker, generates the force of contraction of autorhythmic of heart. Hence it is called pacemaker of heart. And our heart normally beats 70-75 times in minutes. Okay. And on average it is 72 beats per minute. Okay. So these are the different parts which are seen in human heart: atrium, ventricles, valves, okay, aorta, pulmonary aorta, systemic aorta. These are all different parts. SA node, AV bundle, bundle of His, Purkinje fibers, interventricular septum, atrioventricular septum. These all are different parts in the heart. Now we are going to discuss about cardiac cycle. So what is this cardiac cycle? So the cyclic events which takes place in each heartbeat, it is called one cardiac cycle. So heartbeat is a cyclic event. So in this cardiac cycle, we'll start with the 4 chambers of heart. That is when they are in relaxed state. So in relaxed state, it is called joint diastole, where atrium and ventricles are relaxed in state. Okay. And during this situation, that is tricuspid and bicuspid valves are open. So blood from pulmonary veins, vena cava, flows into left and right ventricles. From left right atrium. That is, blood from right atrium flows into right ventricle. Blood from left atrium goes into left ventricle. And during this time, semilunar valves are closed. But these two are open. So when they are in diastole, the tricuspid and bicuspid valves are open, semilunar valves are closed. As bicuspid and tricuspid valves are open, the blood from atrium will enter into ventricles. SCA node, sino-auricular node, will generate action potential, which is called pacemaker. Due to this action potential, what happens is it leads to contraction of both atria, which is called atrial systole. So what will happen is, due to this, the blood flow from atria to ventricles will increase by 30%. The more blood will be pushed to, that is pumped to ventricles by 30%. Okay. Whatever the action potential from SCA1, SA sino-auricular node, has passed to AV node. From AV node through Purkinje fibers, that is through AV bundles. That is, if you see the pathway of the action potential, sino-auricular node and then auriculoventricular node, next AV bundles, and through this AV bundles it reaches to, that is, in AV bundles there is again their bifurcation, that is right and left, and it reaches to, that is through Purkinje fibers. In this way it spreads to entire heart. So what will happen is, this will initiate ventricular systole. So initially, that is auricular systole, later on it initiates ventricular systole. So when ventricular systole takes place, the atria under relaxation, that is diastole. So during ventricular systole, what happens? During ventricular systole, the intraventricular blood pressure will increase, so that it leads to closing of tricuspid and bicuspid valves. Due to closing of this bicuspid and tricuspid, the first heart sound is held, that is lub sound. Okay. Further increase in pressure leads to opening of semilunar valves. So oxygenated blood from left atrium pumped to systemic aorta, and deoxygenated blood from right atrium to plum aorta. That is, blood from oxygenated blood enters into systemic aorta, and deoxygenated blood from right atrium to right ventricle reaches to pulmonary aorta. So these are the changes which takes place during ventricular systole. So during ventricular systole, the auricles will be in relaxed state. So here if you see this, the first stage of cardiac cycle, that is, both are in relaxed state, joint diastole, where both auricles and ventricles are in relaxed state. During this relaxed state, the valves are open, atrioventricular valves are open, that is, tricuspid and bicuspid valves are open. Semilunar valves are closed. So here blood will flow into from auricles to ventricles. And the second step, that is this joint diastole, will lag for, that is 0.4 seconds. In the second step, that is atrial systole. So in atrial systole, the auricles will be in contraction state. Ventricles will be in relaxed state. So during this, the valves will close. That is, AV valves will close. Due to this, the lub sound will arise and semilunar valves will open. So this takes, that is 0.1 seconds. In the next stage, that is ventricular systole, where auricles are in relaxed state. Diastole. Here what happens is the semilunar valves will open, so that blood enters into, that is, the pulmonary aorta, and the blood from left ventricle enters into systemic aorta, where AV valves are closed. Okay. So this stands for, that is ventricular systole stands for, that is, it takes time of approximately 0.3 seconds. This a cardiac cycle will take total of time 0.8 seconds, in which 0.4 seconds in joint diastole, 0.1 second in auricular systole, and 0.3 seconds in ventricular systole. So this is what happens in a cardiac cycle. Similarly, ventricular systole is followed by ventricular diastole. So it is followed by ventricular diastole. So interventricular blood pressure decreases leads to closing of semilunar valves. Due to this closing of semilunar valves, you can listen the second heart sound, that is done. As the ventricular pressure declines, further there is an opening of bicuspid and tricuspid valves. Wow. That is, both ventricles and auricles are relaxed simultaneously, which is called joint diastole, where it will be for 0.4 seconds. Okay. The sequential event, heart in which the cyclically repeated, this is called cardiac cycle. So per minute, if you take the heart beats for 72 times per minute, and each cardiac cycle, that is 0.8 seconds. So during cardiac cycle, the ventricles pump 70 ml of blood into aorta, which is called stroke volume. So in each cardiac cycle, 70 ml of blood is pumped. That is, this 70 ml of blood for each cardiac cycle, that is 72 times. So that is, when multiplied with 70 ml of blood multiplied with 72 times, roughly will get, that is, the cardiac output, which is about 5000 ml, which is equal to 5000 liters of blood. So here we'll come across two terms, one is stroke volume and one other is cardiac output. Stroke volume, for each cardiac cycle 70 ml of blood is pumped out. When the stroke volume is multiplied with heartbeat rate per minute, that is 70 into 72, that is 72 beats per minute. So it will roughly come out 5000 ml, that is 5 liters of blood. So heartbeats, there are two basic sounds we can listen, that is lub and dub. So lub sound is listened when there is a closing of this tricuspid and bicuspid valves, and where the semilunar valves are open. The second heart sound, that is it is called S2, which is called the closure of pulmonary valves, where during this time the AV valves are open. That is, the closing of aortic semilunar valves and pulmonary Simon valves, which leads to the second sound, that is dub. So two sounds, one is lub and another one is dub. So which are listened during the cardiac cycle. So during closing of AV valves, lub. During closing of semilunar valves, that is dub. Okay. So this cardiac cycle, so which takes 0.8 seconds, where joint diastole, atrial systole, ventricular systole are seen. To know the functioning of heart, there is a test that is called electrocardiograph, where the graphical, it is represented in the form of graphical representation of a cardiac cycle. Okay. So ECG, it is a diagnostic test to the functioning of heart. So in this functioning of heart, that is in ECG, there are symbols like from P to T, that is P, Q, R, S, T. So each peak represents, that is, each letter will represent corresponding to the electrical activity of heart. The P wave will represent the contraction, that is, electrical excitation of atrium. QRS complex represents depolarization of ventricles. So ventricular contraction starts after the Q and marks the beginning of ventricular systole. So T wave represents ventricular diastole, that is again repolarization. So here you can see, that is P, Q, R, S, T. So P represents ventricular auricular systole. QRS represents ventricular systole. T represents ventricular diastole. Okay. So during, that is auricular, that is lub sound, and this is dub sound which represents. Okay. And there is atrial pressure, there is a peak during this stage and less during P stage. So here you can see the ECG waves, that is P, Q, R, S, T. Okay. So QRS represents ventricular contraction. P represents atrial contraction. And T represents, that is, ventricular diastole. So based on this frequency of this PQRST waves in ECG, the functioning of the heart is assessed. Okay. So here if you see this, in the first stage, that is pacemaker will generate waves of signals, that is to contract. AV node, that is signals delayed at AV node. From AV node, the signals pass through heart apex, AV bundles. From AV bundles, signal spreads through ventricles through Purkinje fibers. Okay. So here in this, if you see this, the P wave, initially it is SA node that generates action potential. And the next part, which represents the AV node. Okay. And the down peak, this one represents the passing of two heart apex. And during the ventricular systole, the where the signal spreads through entire ventricles. So by seeing the frequency of this PQRST waves, so the functioning of heart can be diagnosed. That is during P wave, activation of atrium. During QRS wave, that is activation of ventricles. T wave, that is recovery wave, the diastole, that is ventricular diastole. So here you can see there is a normal heartbeat rate and a fast heartbeat rate, the reading you can see, which is the peaks are very close, slow, there is a large gap between QRS waves. Irregular, see, you can see when the gaps of this are irregular. So like this, the functioning of heart can be assessed by this ECG PQRS. Okay. So abnormal ECG represents different heart issues. Like if we come to tachycardia, where heart rate is over 100 beats per minute. You can see there is a fast rate. And ventricular fibrillation, where there is no proper QRS waves. Heart block, failure of stimulation to ventricles following an atricular contraction. So there is a long gap between this. So like this, the functioning of heart is assessed by studying these waves, that is PQRST, which will give a diagnostic report of functioning of heart. Follow us SPSVERSITY on social media. So till now we have discussed about the structure of heart, the cardiac cycle and the ECG, which diagnoses the functioning of heart. Now we will discuss about double circulation. What is this double circulation? Specifically in mammals, that is, there are two circulations, that is pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. What is this pulmonary circulation? So pulmonary circulation means the circulation towards lungs and from away from the lungs. So from where it starts? That is, the pulmonary circulation starts from right ventricle. So right ventricle means it is related to deoxygenated blood. From right ventricle, that is through pulmonary artery, the deoxygenated blood reaches to lungs. In lungs, the deoxygenated blood is converted to oxygenated blood by oxygenation, where the carbon dioxide is removed and oxygen combines with hemoglobin. And this oxygenated blood from pulmonary vein reaches to left atrium. That is, the circulation towards lungs and away from the lungs, it is called pulmonary circulation. So which starts from the right ventricle and ends with the left atrium. Okay. So here the interesting aspect is, in lungs the deoxygenated blood is transformed into oxygenated blood. Okay, now left atrium has received the oxygenated blood. From this left atrium, the oxygenated blood reaches to left ventricle, where from left ventricle the remaining part of double circulation starts, that is called systemic circulation. That is, through oxygenated blood, the left ventricle, the blood enters into systemic aorta and reaches to, from systemic aorta, the blood reaches to different body parts. As and when the oxygenated blood reaches to different body parts, there as CO2 concentration is high, the oxygen is left and CO2 combines with blood and becomes deoxygenation. By deoxygenation, it becomes into deoxygenated blood. And this deoxygenated blood is collected by vena cava. In vena cava, there are superior and inferior. Superior will collect from upper part and inferior will collect from lower part. From vena cava, the blood enters into right atrium. So this is how there are two circulations, that is pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. And besides this, there are portal systems, that is where blood is bypassed, which was going without entering into, that is the heart. So here deoxygenated blood collected from one organ by means of a vein enters into another organ before it is delivered to systemic circulation. The best one you can see, hepatic portal system, where it carries deoxygenated blood from intestine to liver before it is delivered to systemic circulation. That means this hepatic portal vein will carry deoxygenated blood from intestine to liver, which is called hepatic portal system. And there is coronary circulation, that is a coronary blood vessel, a special blood vessel, which is present in the blood exclusively for circulation of blood to and from the cardiac muscles. So cardiac muscles also require oxygenated blood. So the blood vessel which supplies the blood, that is the coronary vessels, where the blood is supplied to heart muscles, again the deoxygenated blood is removed. This is called coronary circulation. So here you can see the diagram of the double circulation, where the left part is completely related to oxygenated blood, which is red in color, which is oxygenated blood. And the right part is related to deoxygenated blood. Okay. So here you can see that is the blood which is collected from body organs through vena cava, it reaches to right atrium. From right atrium, it reaches to right ventricle. From right ventricle through pulmonary artery, it reaches to lungs. In lungs, oxygenation takes place, where deoxygenated blood is converted to oxygenated. So from pulmonary veins, again the blood reaches to left atrium. From left atrium to left ventricle, from left ventricle to aorta. So through aorta it reaches to different body organs. So this circulation, that is, it is called systemic circulation. And this part of circulation, it is called pulmonary circulation. So it is pulmonary circulation where the blood flows into lungs and goes away from the lungs. Systemic circulation where blood flows into blood flows to body parts and blood comes away from the body parts and enters into heart. It is called systemic circulation. Coronary circulation, where the circulation to heart muscles, the blood to heart muscles and away from the heart muscles. So here the right coronary artery, so left coronary artery, which will pump oxygenated blood into heart. Okay. So here you can see there is a pumping of blood, that is, okay, through this. So this is called coronary circulation. It supplies blood to heart muscles. Okay. So till now we have discussed about, that is, the double circulation, coronary circulation, and we have discussed about the portal systems, pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. Okay. How this cardiac activity is controlled in our body. Okay. So the rhythmicity, that is the heartbeat, is regulated by specialized nodal tissue. It is called myogenic. Okay. So special neural center is present in medulla oblongata, which comes under hindbrain, which can regulate cardiac function moderately. So neural signals which are coming from sympathetic nerves can increase the heart rate and cardiac output. And the neural signals coming from parasympathetic, which can decrease the heart rate and cardiac output. Not only sympathetic and parasympathetic, even adrenal medulla, that is the gland, the hormone which are released from adrenal medulla, adrenaline, which will increase cardiac output, that is, which will increase the heartbeat also. So heartbeat, which is regulated by, that is, which is present a neural center which is present in hindbrain, that is medulla oblongata. So here you can see that is sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic, which will increase, that is dilates pupil, inhibits flow of saliva, accelerates heartbeat, dilates bronchi, inhibits peristalsis, conversion of glucose into glucose, secretion of adrenaline and noradrenaline, which will increase heartbeat, inhibits bladder contraction. Parasympathetic, opposite action, contraction of pupil, that is the contraction of pupil, stimulates flow of saliva, slow heartbeat is slow, constriction of bronchi, stimulates peristalsis, stimulates release of bile, contraction of bladder. So where sympathetic will increase and parasympathetic will decrease the heartbeat rate. Okay. And the neural center, that is which regulates cardiac activity, it is present in medulla oblongata. So which is present in medulla oblongata. And the nerves which regulate the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So here you can see there is nerves arising from brain, that is through vagus nerves, which regulates parasympathetic. And the spinal cord, that is sympathetic ganglia from spinal cord. Okay. So we have discussed about regulation of cardiac activity. So now we'll discuss about the disorders of circulatory system. There are various disorders. Like the first one, which is a silent killer, that is the hypertension. So which in terms of high blood pressure, it is normal, higher blood pressure than normal. Normal blood pressure is 120/80. So 120 is systolic pressure and 80 is diastolic pressure. So when there is blood pressure more than 120/80, that is sustained 140 or 90 higher, it is said to be hypertension. Less than this, it is hypotension. And blood pressure is measured by sphygmomanometer. The equipment which will measure it is sphygmomanometer. So what will happen if the blood pressure increases? It leads to heart diseases and also affects important organs like brain and kidney. So when it comes to coronary artery disease, okay, hypertension one, which is now it has become common in each and every individual due to change in lifestyle, food habits, the regular activity disorder. Next, coronary artery disease, which is commonly called SCAD. often referred as atherosclerosis, which will affect blood supply to heart muscles. So why heart muscles? It is blood supply. What will happen here? Due to deposition of calcium, fat, cholesterol and fibrous tissue in the lumen of coronary artery. As deposition of this calcium, fats, cholesterol takes place, the coronary artery becomes narrow. So when coronary artery becomes narrow, the blood supply to heart muscles is decreased. So when there is no proper blood supply to coronary artery, the heart muscles cannot function properly. When heart muscles cannot function properly, heart cannot do pumping properly. You can see here. This is coronary artery. Okay. So this is smooth endothelium which gets damaged. Okay. Due to deposition of these fats, see here, there is fatty core is deposited in the lumen of coronary artery. As it is deposited, what happens is the artery is getting blocked. So here you can see the mode, that is, the arteries are getting blocked. Due to this, the blood flow to coronary, that is, to heart muscles, decreases. As blood flow decreases, heart muscles doesn't get proper oxygen. When there is no proper oxygen, they cannot function properly. They cannot do the pumping one properly. So this is called atherosclerosis. Next one is angina, which is also called angina pectoris. Okay. So which causes acute chest pain. So which causes acute chest pain due to inadequate oxygen supply to the heart. So it occurs due to blockade to coronary artery. Okay. Next, cardiac arrest, where heart stop beating. Cardiac arrest is different, heart attack is different. Heart attack is heart muscle gets damaged suddenly by inadequate blood supply to heart muscles. When heart muscles are damaged, it cannot supply blood. There is no proper function. Cardiac arrest is sudden stopping of heartbeat, that is, heart stops beating. How to overcome this all? Like when there is a CAD, coronary artery disease, where the coronary artery is blocked with cholesterol. So here you can see this is site of cholesterol blockage. Okay. So here a surgery is done, that is coronary heart bypass surgery, where this is removed with the artery from other body parts, generally from limbs. So it is internal memory artery bypass, where a blood vessel is laid from the coronary artery to directly from bypassing the pathway where the site where the blood vessel is blocked. So this is called coronary artery bypass. Okay. So here when there is a narrowing of coronary artery, it may lead to acute chest pain. Why it will become narrow is due to deposition of this calcium fat. This is deposition of calcium fat. This one. What is heart failure? Okay, we have studied about cardiac arrest where heart stops functioning suddenly, and where heart attack, where heart muscles get damaged. But what is heart failure? Heart failure is where heart is not pumping the blood effectively to meet the needs of the body. That means heart is not pumping. It is sometimes called congestive heart failure. So why it will happen due to congestion of lungs is one of the main symptoms. So heart failure is not same as to cardiac arrest as to heart attack. So there is a difference between heart failure, heart attack, cardiac arrest. Heart failure is the heart is not effectively pumping the blood. Where cardiac arrest is where heart stops beating. Where heart attack is heart muscles get damaged by inadequate blood supply. Why these all are happening, that is heart failure, heart cardiac arrest, these all are happening due to, that is, change in the lifestyle habits, the food habits, the more cholesterol intake, the more carbohydrate intake. So less vitamins and less minerals intake. These all are leading to the what we call these all heart failures, cardiac arrest, and heart attacks. This all angina, which is called angina pectoris, coronary artery diseases. These all are related with each other, and these all are overall related to the lifestyle habits, where the heart lifestyle habits, mainly the food and the activity. Due to more intake of cholesterol food, carbohydrate foods, it leads to this activity, lack of activity. Okay, that is sitting at one place. These all are less active stages, which leads to this. That's why you should take care of your lifestyle habit, the food habits, the activities, which can prevent these heart failures, cardiac arrest, and next, that is what we call heart attacks. So that's all for today's session. Follow us SPSVERSITY on social media. Thank you all. We'll meet in the next session.